Hello, and welcome to Midnight Affairs Tales. Your support means everything to us. We'd love to know, which geographical location are you joining from today? At home on the go, share with us below now. Let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Surveillance That Wasn't. The sun hadn't risen yet when Rowan Briggs checked his Glock, zipped up his duffel, and kissed his wife goodbye. Just a quick surveillance op. I'll be back by Monday, he said, voice steady. Marla nodded sleepily from the doorway, wrapped in his old FBI hoodie. Be careful. He smiled. Always. By 5:12 a.m., his bureau-issued Tahoe turned off Highway 20, vanishing into the mist rolling across Northern California's Pine Line roads. By noon, he was gone. Burned-out SUV. No body. One melted batch fragment. Rowan Briggs was presumed dead. Marla held the press conference with tears in her voice and diamonds in her ears. He was a hero. He died doing what he loved. Cameras flashed. Her makeup didn't smudge once. 3 days later, she was laughing at a rooftop bar with Dax Reimer, billionaire CEO, venture capitalist, and her grief counselor. In a small off-grid cabin 200 miles east, Rowan watched it all unfold through a cracked laptop screen. His face was lit only by the blue glow of surveillance footage. He hadn't spoken in 2 days. The glass in his hand trembled. She moved on in 72 hours. He rewinded the rooftop video. Dax leaned in. Marla whispered something. Rowan slowed the clip, lip-read the line like he was still on assignment. He should have died years ago. Rowan leaned back in the chair, breath sharp. He looked around his makeshift setup, monitors, tapped phones, burner laptops. He wasn't missing. He'd vanished himself. And now he knew for sure his wife wasn't just cheating. She'd planned to bury him alive. Question is, what else has she buried? Hey everyone, we just crossed 4,000 subscribers on Midnight Affairs Tales. I seriously can't thank you enough for all the love and support. Your love for deep, emotional, and shocking stories is what made this channel what it is today. Now, I've started something new. It's called Betrayal Stories Lab. It's where I'll be sharing even crazier stories, full of betrayal, twists you won't see coming, and endings you won't forget. If you've liked the stories so far, I'd love for you to check out the new channel. The link's in the description. Just one tap and you're there. Let's build this one together. First goal, 1,000 subscribers. And hey, if a story hits you hard, share it. You never know who needs it. Thanks for always being here. Let's get back to the story. 6 days after Rowan's staged disappearance, Marla stood at his memorial wearing a black designer coat, cinched perfectly at the waist. She didn't shed a tear during the eulogy. But afterward, in front of cameras, she broke just enough. It still doesn't feel real. I keep thinking I'll hear him come through the door. Click. Flash. Sympathy. Inside her Tesla that night, Marla turned up the heat and reached over to Dax. Her voice dropped the sorrow like a coat. We need to finalize everything. The house, the insurance. His name off the accounts. Dax smirked. Fast, aren't we? He's dead. I'm not, she said, taking his hand. In the cabin, Rowan replayed the audio. He tapped her car last week while the world was still mourning him. The microphone picked up every calculated breath. His jaw flexed. Marla had switched to a private banker to cash out his FBI pension. $410,000. She'd forged signatures. Fake power of attorney. All documented in digital form. But that wasn't all. Rowan followed her calls and transactions. She wasn't just in bed with Dax. She was laundering money through one of his shell companies. The same company tied to a weapons contractor Rowan had red-flagged 6 months before his death. His heart pounded. This wasn't just adultery. It was betrayal with national security attached. On screen, a message pinged from an anonymous number. She knows you're alive. Run. Rowan blinked. Who the hell? He turned the lights off, grabbed the bag under the floorboard, and slipped out the back door. Snow had started to fall. Heavy. Silent. She wasn't just a liar. She was dangerous. The house was quieter than usual. Not out of grief, but out of absence. Marla had fired the cleaning staff. Sold most of Rowan's suits to a luxury consignment dealer. She even swapped out the dining table. They never used it anyway, she told Dax. She's moved on, Rowan whispered to himself, eyes on the camera feed. He was watching from a rooftop across the street. hidden beneath a blackout blanket and thermal gear. His fingers clutched binoculars as the scene unfolded in front of him. Dax poured 2 glasses of wine. Marla leaned over the island counter, lips on his ear. They laughed. Loud. Free. Rowan zoomed in. Her phone lay face down on the counter. She always left it face up. He taught her that, back when trust still lived between them. The shift wasn't accidental. At 2:43 a.m., Dax left. Marla stayed at the window, staring into the night. Rowan didn't blink. She whispered something to the glass. He's watching. He pulled back fast. Did she see him? No. The angles were clean. Nothing could have exposed him. But his instincts screamed otherwise. He moved fast, breaking down his rooftop perch, climbing down the fire escape. The streets were wet. Cold. The city buzzed under a layer of deceit. Back in the motel, he downloaded footage to a secure drive. There, he paused one frame, Marla kissing Dax in front of a framed photo of Rowan. His badge number etched below. Poison in plain sight. Rowan stared for a long moment, then opened a hidden folder on his laptop. Operation. Widowmaker Step 1. Confirm affair. Complete Step 2. Identify secondary crimes. In progress Step 3. Burn the empire to the ground. Pending, and he wouldn't stop, until nothing of Marla's life was left standing. Rowan didn't sleep that night. He sat in a dim motel room, a single lamp casting shadows across the wall. His laptop screen glowed like a confession booth. Every file he opened bled betrayal. He wasn't just looking for affair footage anymore. That part hurt. Yeah, but it wasn't the story now. This was bigger, darker, measured. Folder after folder, he followed the digital paper trail. Marla had used his bureau credentials after his death, accessed classified drone intel, uploaded it to an unlisted IP that bounced across 5 countries. She wasn't alone, Dax was in on it. But then something unexpected. A folder named lockbox_Azure. Encrypted. She never used encryption, not for anything domestic. Rowan cracked it in under an hour. What he found? Wire transfers from a defense company Rowan had personally flagged months before. Shell company invoices. Offshore accounts. 6-figure payouts made in Marla's name. And one name on all of them. Avery Keene. A name Rowan remembered from a briefing, former CIA, now a private investor. Keene was flagged for tech violations. Suspicious lobbying. Quiet settlements. This man wasn't just laundering money, he was greasing the government. Rowan's jaw tightened. Dax and Marla weren't just playing dirty, they were part of a bigger corruption chain. His wife was the front. He sat back, eyes scanning the corkboard he'd built beside his desk. Red lines. Photos. Code names. Marla's picture sat dead center. Rowan added one more photo below hers, Avery Keene, with a note. Ex-CIA, confirmed Shell link, possible handler. That night, Rowan didn't flinch. He backed up the data, sealed the drive, and wrote a single sentence on the label. If I'm found dead for real, start here. It took 2 weeks to infiltrate the phone lines. Marla had switched numbers, upgraded security, even changed passwords weekly. But habits? Habits never changed. Rowan used her favorite weakness, Bluetooth syncing. She'd paired her phone to her new car's audio system. All Rowan had to do was intercept the stream, and now he had it. Calls. Voice memos. Every careless whisper. Dax, you're overthinking this, she said on one call. The agent's dead. They cremated him. He's ash in a jar. Focus on the fund transfers. She sounded annoyed. Cold. Like Rowan had been a dog she'd finally put down. Then, Avery said he'll move on to phase 2 if the final clearance gets through. He wants the drone protocol logs. Rowan paused the recording. Heart pounding. Drone protocol logs? He didn't just hear his wife committing treason. He heard her selling national defense for cash. And still, no regret in her voice. In another call, she coached Dax on lying to an auditor. Keep it vague. Say it was a cybersecurity test, not actual transfer. I'll handle the journalist if she starts poking again. The journalist. Rowan scribbled a name from the last article she published, Juliana Cates, an independent reporter who had written about the defense sector's shady procurement deals. Rowan added her to the board. She might be his only ally who didn't wear a badge or a suit. Later that night, Rowan recorded a new memo. Package 2A contains voice recordings, wire logs, Shell Company data. Build profile on Marla and Dax. Distribute only if trigger phrase is activated. The phrase? She said he should have died years ago. The words that lit the fuse. The fuse that would burn every lie down to ash. Rowan watched the high-rise from a stolen delivery van parked across the street. Dax Reamer's penthouse lit up at 9:27 p.m., right on cue. They were never careful. Too rich. Too arrogant. Too comfortable. From this angle, Rowan could see their balcony. 2 glasses. 1 bottle of bourbon. No guilt. Through a long-range mic, he caught Dax's voice. Calm. Rehearsed. Keen said he'll be here next month. He's coming personally to check the servers. Servers? Rowan zoomed in through the window. Dax was pointing at a wall-mounted screen filled with file directories. The folder highlighted, Bureau_Ghost_Archive. Rowan's blood froze. That was a classified archive on agents' biometric data. If Keen got his hands on it, people would die. He whispered into his recorder. They're not done. They're expanding. The whole op is still running. Across the street, Dax went quiet. Marla walked out wearing Rowan's old FBI field jacket. Her hands traced the shoulder patch like it was a trophy. You should throw that out, Dax said, pouring more bourbon. No, she smiled. This is my insurance policy. Rowan's fists clenched. She was wearing his skin while selling out the country. His name, his badge, his death. He didn't look away. He couldn't. He scanned the building's blueprints. Found a ventilation shaft above the bedroom. He could install a microcam in under 5 minutes. No entry needed. Time to stop watching. Time to start collecting. He checked the time, 2:15 a.m. By sunrise, Rowan would have eyes inside their empire. The penthouse was quiet, too quiet for someone like Dax Reamer. That night, Marla had flown to Seattle under the cover of a bogus wellness conference, leaving Dax to handle the sensitive upload. Rowan knew this from tracking her burner's GPS and checking airport records under her fake ID, Rachel Ayers. She had 5 aliases. That was the one used when she met Dax. Rowan moved through the parking garage below the building dressed like a janitor. Oversized hoodie, old ID badge from a defunct maintenance company, a mop bucket covering his real gear. The building's internal access system still ran on firmware that hadn't been patched in 2 years. He'd flagged it when it was new. Now it was his entry point. 6 minutes, he whispered to himself, watching the rotating security cameras. He moved when the timing aligned, between angles, between shadows. Upstairs, in the server closet outside Dax's office, Rowan slid a pin-sized camera into the ventilation duct. A slim black cable disappeared into the wiring harness. He booted up the mobile router. The red light blinked 3 times. Live. Audio. Video. Real time. Back in the van, he watched Dax unlock his laptop and speak into a secure line. Keen's expecting the upload tonight. He wants biometric access logs from the South Zone. Pause. Yeah, the ones under the Ghost Protocol. Rowan leaned forward. Ghost Protocol wasn't just sensitive, it was unpublished. That archive only existed in dark corners of the Bureau. How did Dax even know it existed? Then the line crackled. Another voice came through, older, colder. And what about Briggs? The real Briggs? You're sure he's dead? Rowan's spine straightened. That wasn't Marla. Dax hesitated. If he was alive, don't you think we'd already be exposed? That pause, too long. Too careful. Rowan narrowed his eyes, watching Dax light a cigar with fingers that shook just slightly. This wasn't confidence. It was stalling. Dax knew. Rowan stared at the monitor long after Dax ended the call. Outside the van, rain tapped the roof in sharp, rhythmic beats, like a countdown clock he couldn't stop. The silence inside buzzed louder than the tech equipment humming around him. He clicked over to the second camera stream. Marla, alone in a luxury suite in Seattle. Hair wrapped in a towel, laptop open, a glass of red wine by her side. She was writing an email. He zoomed in. Her fingers moved quick, smooth muscle memory. The subject line read, Clearance File, Phase 2 Request. He ran an optical scan to record the text as it appeared on screen. Once finished, she leaned back, laughed to herself, and typed another message on her phone. Guess who texted me? That girl from our wedding. She asked how I'm holding up. Told her I sleep better now. LOL. The wine glass clinked against the marble table. Rowan inhaled sharply. She was talking about Nina, his cousin, the maid of honor at their wedding. He remembered the way Marla had hugged her that night, told her they'd be family forever. Now she was using their grief as a punchline. The van felt tighter suddenly, smaller. Rage came in waves, controlled only by discipline honed over years in the field. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. This was about identity, hers and his. Rowan clicked open an encrypted file he'd created the week after his staged death. It was a legal reconstruction of his identity, new name, new face scan, new access credentials. Everything a man would need to disappear or reappear on his terms. He hesitated. Coming back meant war. But he wasn't just Rowan Briggs anymore. He was the man with two deaths. And the second one was for them. Rowan hadn't heard the name Juliana Cates in over 2 years, not since she published an exposé on federal contract manipulation. She'd almost lost her career over it. The Bureau called her a problem. But Rowan remembered the truth. She'd been right. That's why he sent her a flash drive. No return address. No signature. Just a note inside that said, "Trust no one in a suit." While the drive made its way to her, Rowan circled back to the house, his house. The one Marla had gutted and staged for the world. She'd repainted the walls, threw out his books, burned the blanket his mother knit them the first year of their marriage. And yet, she kept one thing. His field jacket, still hanging in the closet like a trophy. Rowan stood across the street in shadow, watching through a scope. Marla sat inside under warm lights, curled on the couch with wine in one hand and her phone in the other. She was crying, but it wasn't grief. Her shoulders shook without sound. Her face wasn't buried in hands. No, those were performance tears. The kind you practiced in the mirror. Her phone buzzed. She wiped her eyes instantly and answered. "Hey, baby," she said sweetly. "Yeah, I'm just tired." "No, I didn't talk to anyone today. Just stayed in." Rowan checked the call log from the back door tap. She'd spoken with 3 people that day. Her lawyer, her fake investment rep, and someone tagged only as LK. Every word from her mouth was a lie. But not to him. Never to him. She knew he was out there. And that fear, that whisper in her mind, he might still be alive, was the first piece of revenge Rowan didn't have to plan. She was already living it. The email came from a law firm Rowan never trusted, Kirkland & Wyatt, LLP, one of Marla's go-to sharks. The subject line read, "Final claim authorization, FBI pension and insurance disbursement." Inside were attached digital signatures, his signatures, perfectly forged. Rowan stared at the screen in the back of a dim cafe, the kind of place that served stale coffee and never asked questions. His burner laptop was connected to a VPN across 4 countries. He wasn't taking chances. "Final payment processed," he read aloud. The total? $412,700, split between 2 offshore accounts. One under Marla's name. The other, Dax Reamer's. She didn't even try to hide it. The death of a husband had become her investment plan. Rowan downloaded every document and ran it through verification software. Not only were the signatures fraudulent, but the medical examiner's certificate had been issued under a false identity, someone named Trevor Lane, a retired county coroner who died 3 years ago. He added a new name to his list. The real kicker? Marla had used the insurance claim to secure a down payment on a property in Aspen, a getaway home, like she was already planning a second life. Rowan's fingers hovered over the keyboard as he composed an anonymous tip to the insurance fraud division. Suspect, Marla Briggs. Forged death certificate. False claim under federal employee policy. Evidence attached. Witnesses compromised. Request quiet audit. He clicked send. It wouldn't be loud. Not yet. But soon, someone would knock on Marla's door, not with flowers or cameras, but with a quiet clipboard, asking questions she couldn't answer. He closed the laptop. The first thread was pulled. Now the unraveling would begin. Juliana Cates wasn't the kind of woman who startled easily. When the flash drive arrived in a nondescript envelope with no return address, she almost threw it away. But the note caught her eye. "You exposed them once. Now finish the job." She plugged it in. 2 hours later, she was pacing her apartment barefoot, muttering to herself. Audio files. Surveillance footage. Internal FBI access logs. shell company bank trails. And at the center of it all, Marla Briggs, listed as an unofficial contractor moving sensitive files under a project code called Ghost Protocol. Juliana didn't recognize the sender, but she recognized the stakes. This wasn't just some cheating scandal. This was buried intel, dead agent-level intel. If even half of this was legit, it could take down careers, even agencies. She reached for her phone and dialed her contact at the Bay Sentinel, her last major editor before she went solo. "You need to hear this," she said, breath short. "No, screw that. You need to publish this. I have proof of federal collusion, stolen tech, and a woman who turned her husband's death into a payday. You have sources?" Juliana looked at the envelope. "Not yet. But someone wants this out, and they're not bluffing." Meanwhile, Rowan sat in a rented car 2 blocks from her apartment, listening to the conversation through the bug he'd planted on the drive casing. He watched her pace through the window, voice rising. She was the right choice. Fierce. Independent. Relentless. Exactly the kind of wildfire Marla couldn't control. "Light the match," he whispered. He didn't want the explosion yet, but he wanted her to hear the ticking. Rowan stood in the house he once called home. It had taken months of tracking security patterns and waiting for Marla to leave town for a tech conference to step foot inside. The air was sterile. Not a memory in sight. His books were gone. His desk replaced. Family photos stripped off the walls. But one thing remained untouched, his FBI field jacket. Still hanging in the hallway closet. Still holding his badge replica on the inside flap. He reached inside the lining. Found what he'd hidden 5 years ago during a surveillance op, a micro-SD card wrapped in foil. He slid it into his burner phone. It lit up instantly. Inside were encrypted case files, ones he never turned in. Ones that connected Dax Reamer's company to a classified tech leak years before. At the time, Rowan thought it was coincidence. Now it was a roadmap. He placed the jacket back where it was, careful to shift it only slightly. Let her wonder. Let her paranoia fester. Then he walked into the living room and did the unthinkable, set down a framed photo of them at their wedding. Only now, the glass had a hairline crack in it. On the back, he scribbled in Sharpie, "You buried me alive. Now I dig you up." He left it face down on the kitchen counter. No note. No fingerprints. Just a phantom message. Rowan stepped outside, heart calm. As the door clicked shut, he felt it. Not revenge yet, but control. Power. One step at a time, he was taking his life back. And hers was about to come crashing down, piece by piece. The Bureau's database was like a locked fortress. Layers of security, clearance protocols, digital traps. Rowan knew it better than most. He helped design parts of it. And now, ironically, he was breaking into the very system he once defended. Inside a rented co-working space posing as a freelance IT office, Rowan set up his workstation. His target wasn't just any file. It was a suppressed digital fingerprint, a log that confirmed someone using his ID accessed a restricted server from an IP outside the Bureau. The timestamp? 3 days after his death. That was Marla's mistake. She'd been greedy. Sloppy. She accessed a classified drone pattern file tied to a defense program that hadn't even been approved yet. Top secret. Top level. And now she'd left her digital scent all over it, wearing Rowan's face like a mask. Rowan leaned closer to the screen, cracking the IP log security with a technique only someone inside would know. He filtered the signature. There it was, her geolocation ping from Reamer Innovations data hub. He froze the frame, snapped a screenshot. This wasn't just cheating. This was espionage. He exported everything to an encrypted drive and initiated a secure upload to a private legal archive. Not for the media. Not yet. This was leverage. He picked up his burner phone and texted one contact, Juliana Cates. "There's a body buried under Reamer Innovations, but it's still breathing. Call me at midnight. 5 minutes. Block number." He looked out the window at the sunset bleeding over the city. Tonight, the clock started ticking for Marla and Dax and the traders hiding behind polished boardrooms and digital firewalls. They buried him in silence. He would rise in chaos. Juliana's voice buzzed through the line at exactly midnight. "You weren't kidding," she said, breath tight. "I cross-checked that IP log you sent. Not only does it trace to Reamer's servers, but it also links to a subdomain that's been quietly flagged by the Department of Energy. Rowan didn't speak. He let her keep going. And there's more. I did some digging into Marla Briggs. Not just the marriage, not just the insurance, but her other jobs. She has 5 shell companies under different names. One of them sells digital privacy services to high-level clients. Rowan sat up straighter. She's not just laundering money, Juliana continued. She's recording the affairs. Executives, government officials, then using the footage to keep them in her pocket. He closed his eyes. Marla hadn't just betrayed him. She turned betrayal into a business. Rowan could see it now. Those long nights she claimed she was consulting, the expensive lingerie purchases she said were just for us, the sudden increase in first-class flights and designer bags. It had all been a performance, and he had funded the first act of her empire. I need access to her client list, Rowan said finally. Every one of them. I'm on it. But this gets messy. I'm counting on it. Meanwhile, in a luxury condo across town, Marla received a text from an unknown number. A photo attachment. It was her, sitting across from a hotel room bed. A camera hidden in a corner captured it all. Her blood ran cold. The text read, "Your secrets were your power. Now they're your coffin." Rowan's next target was someone closer. Too close. Agent Marcus Hale, his former partner at the Bureau. They shared intel, covered each other's backs, spent more nights tracking suspects together than with their own families. Rowan had once trusted him with everything, but trust, he'd learned, was a fragile currency, and Marcus had sold his at a discount. Rowan had caught the first red flag a week after his disappearance. Marcus was the one who signed off on his final operation logs, the ones that made Rowan look reckless, the ones that justified his accidental death. He watched from afar now as Marcus entered a luxury cigar lounge, same place every Thursday night. Rowan followed him into the alley behind it, step silent, breath calm. "Didn't think I'd see you again," Rowan said from the shadows. Marcus froze, turned slowly. "Jesus Christ, nope. Just the ghost you helped bury." "I didn't, Rowan. I swear. You think I don't know you covered for her? You deleted call logs, backdated reports. You signed a death that never happened. I had no choice. They came to me with threats, with money. I didn't know they were gonna sell the country out." Silence. Rowan stepped forward, dropped a flash drive on the ground between them. "You're gonna flip, Marcus. You're gonna testify, or I'll release this to the DOJ and every media outlet you've ever lied to." "What's on it?" "Everything. And your name's on every page." Marcus looked down at the drive, then back at Rowan, haunted. Rowan leaned in. "You helped fake my death. Now you help me kill the lie." The folder was a monster, 300 pages deep, encrypted 3 layers in, buried inside an old USB Rowan had extracted from a safety deposit box under a fake name. It contained spreadsheets, transaction histories, internal contracts, enough to drown a federal agent in red tape. Rowan didn't flinch. He'd swam in that kind of chaos before. Each line he read was a nail in Dax's coffin. One shell company led to another, then another. Thin fronts under Reamer Innovations, all registered to ghost executives with foreign passports. The money moved like smoke. Some payments looked like R&D grants. Others, consulting fees. But when you pulled the layers apart, one truth stood clear. They were washing millions through government-funded drone projects that didn't exist. Fake hardware. Fake reports. Real money. And guess whose security credentials were used to greenlight those transactions? His. They hadn't just framed him to disappear. They built a billion-dollar fraud ring in his name, using his clearance, his assignments, his history. It was a federal scam on military soil, with his ghost wearing the mask. He cracked open a newer document, titled Phase 2 Expansion Proposal. There it was, a plan to sell classified flight pattern data to a foreign buyer listed only as CN for '04. Translation? China. Rowan stood, chest tight. Dax and Marla weren't just greedy. They were traitors. Back in the dark of his temporary hideout, Rowan connected a secure line to Juliana Cates. "This doesn't stop at infidelity," he said. "They're funneling U.S. secrets to overseas clients." Juliana was silent for a beat. "You sure?" "I have proof. And you're going to help me bury them." She exhaled. Let's take down an empire. It was a private dining room in a quiet Napa Valley restaurant. No press, no security, just red wine, cold lighting, and two devils sitting across from each other, Dax Reimer and Senator Alan Prescott. Rowan sat across the street in an unmarked surveillance vehicle, tuned into the audio through a pin-sized bug he'd planted on Dax's jacket earlier that morning, thanks to a briefcase drop switch with help from Marcus. You said the drone leak was handled, Prescott said, cutting into his steak. Now I hear whispers that some idiot journalist has wind of it? She has nothing real. And even if she does, Dax sipped his wine, she won't publish unless she wants to vanish off the map. I've handled worse. Rowan recorded every word. You promised your wife had control over the federal account taps, Prescott hissed. She did. Still does. Then why the hell is my name on a contract tied to stolen tech? Dax leaned in. Because you signed it. Now you're just another piece on the board. The senator went quiet. Rowan hit mark on his recorder. That moment, right there, was gold. Proof of corruption. Proof of threats. The kind of thing juries ate up, especially when the man making them had a smirk like Dax's. He didn't stop recording. The conversation spiraled deeper, payments made, audits stalled, oversight committees bought off. And then when she thinks he's alive, Dax said. She hasn't said it, but I can see it in her face. Like he's still out there. Prescott scoffed. Then find the ghost. Or bury him again. Rowan didn't move. He just smiled in the dark. The further Rowan dug, the wider the betrayal spread. Every time he peeled back a layer, he found another name, another lie, another set of fingerprints on the knife in his back. This wasn't about one man and one cheating wife. This was a tree of rot, Marla, Dax, their handlers, their bankers, and the officials who kept the branches alive. One of the shell companies, Shadowfall Consulting, had been paid nearly $3.2 million in the last year by a defense contractor known for cyber risk evaluations. A closer look revealed Shadowfall wasn't real. No staff. No office. Just a tax ID. Registered under Lauren Keller. Rowan searched the name. Nothing. Dead end until he ran it through voice analysis software. It matched Marla's voice on a phone registration. She built an entire business in a fake identity, then used it to funnel stolen intel. He sat back, exhaling slowly. Everything she'd ever said about struggling for independence was a lie. She was running side operations while pretending to need space in their marriage. Her empowerment was built on destruction. Rowan opened his encrypted journal, added one more line. She doesn't just break hearts. She breaks systems. He looked around at the wall of evidence he'd built, photographs, names, red threads across timelines. It looked like madness, but it was math, patterns, data, truth. Now it was time to weaponize it. He uploaded 3 flash drives, one to a secure journalist forum, one to a whistleblower leak portal, and one directly to an internal affairs contact inside the bureau, the only one left he trusted. The message was simple. You missed the target. You buried the wrong body. Now watch what happens when a ghost fights back. Rowan didn't need to break into another building. He already knew the weak link and how to twist it. Nathan Cho was a junior VP at Reimer Innovations. Smart, underpaid, and scared. Rowan remembered him from years ago, quiet guy, always 2 steps behind the conversation. The kind of man who would help bury a body, but only because he didn't know how to say no. So Rowan made it easy for him. He left a USB drive inside a package labeled System Patching Protocols on Nathan's desk, a decoy folder wrapped around a virus that activated the moment he opened it. It logged every keystroke, every internal message. And within 48 hours, Rowan had enough to know that Nathan was being used to clean the books on Shadowfall and reroute funds to overseas accounts. But there was more. Nathan had sent Marla a message. I don't like this. The numbers aren't adding up. This could come back on me. She'd replied just 2 words. Grow up. Rowan smiled at that. Her arrogance was always going to be her undoing. He created a burner identity, Daniel Marks, posing as an internal investigator for a fake cybersecurity firm. He emailed Nathan directly. Your name is on fraudulent transactions tied to stolen federal assets. We are escalating unless we speak. Within 2 hours, Nathan called. HLO. I can bury you, Rowan said calmly. or I can use you. Nathan didn't speak for 5 seconds. What do you want? Everything. And if you give it to me, you walk away clean. And just like that, the dominoes began to fall. Juliana didn't sleep. She didn't eat. For 36 hours straight, she pieced together the story of a lifetime. She had everything now: Rowan's files, the shell companies, audio recordings, financial statements, blackmail lists, political bribes, federal exploitation. What started as a cheating scandal had exploded into a multi-agency cover-up with international stakes. She called it Operation Ghost, the agent they buried alive. It wasn't just an article. It was a declaration of war. At 6:01 a.m., the story went live across her channels. Syndicated by 3 major media outlets. Reposted by whistleblower networks. Picked up by international news before 8 o'clock. Names were named. Audio was leaked. Faces were shown. And in the middle of it all, Marla Briggs. Pictured next to Dax Reamer in a luxury villa. Tagged in flight logs to Dubai. Caught transferring money to encrypted wallets. And worst of all, her voice, saying the words, "He should have died years ago." The internet exploded. Comments. Shares. Fury. Juliana's inbox flooded. Offers for interviews. Requests for copies of the files. Messages from agents, some thanking her, some warning her. Rowan watched it all from his motel room, a low buzz humming through his bones. He hadn't expected the flood to come so fast. But now that it had, there was no stopping the tide. Marla didn't speak for 12 straight minutes. The house was silent. No music. No calls. Just the cold, heavy echo of her own breathing. She sat on the edge of the bed, face drained of color, the blue light of her phone burning through the darkness. Her name was trending. Her voice had been broadcast to millions. Her past was now a matter of public record. And then came the texts. From clients. From associates. From friends who weren't friends anymore. "You use me. Take it down or I swear we're ruined. You promised no one would ever know." She tried to call Dax. No answer. Tried again. Straight to voicemail. Her hand trembled as she opened the closet. The FBI jacket was still there, Rowan's jacket. She reached out, gripping the collar. And something fell from the pocket. A folded photo. Their wedding picture. But now it had a single line written across the back in black ink. "I'm not a memory. I'm a reckoning." Marla dropped it like it burned. That's when she realized Rowan wasn't gone. He was watching. Rowan sat in the passenger seat of an idling van parked under a freeway bridge, the glow of a laptop screen bouncing off his face like cold firelight. His fingers hovered over a spreadsheet. Nothing fancy, just names. 7 of them. Marla Briggs, Dax Reamer, Marcus Hale, Nathan Cho, Senator Alan Prescott, Avery Keene, Lauren Keller, each with a corresponding set of crimes: wire fraud, espionage, obstruction, federal conspiracy. And next to that, color-coded tabs: evidence status, public exposure, pending action. But this wasn't just a list. This was a blueprint for annihilation. Rowan wasn't just going to out them. He was going to erase their grip, their leverage, their legacy. He clicked on Marla's tab. Next step, public financial collapse. He already knew her accounts were exposed, but now he'd fed anonymous documents to the IRS and SEC, offshore accounts, fake businesses, misuse of federal death benefits. By week's end, the government would seize everything. Every property, every cent. He moved to Dax. Next step, internal mutiny. Rowan had already sent insider data to Reamer's board of directors, proof of fraud, criminal risk, and a potential class action lawsuit. In a world ruled by money, nothing turned allies faster than liability. Rowan leaned back, eyes sharp. "This isn't revenge," he muttered. "This is correction." Behind him, the van's vents whined quietly. Outside, headlights passed, anonymous and fast. He closed the laptop. The list was ready. And tonight, he'd start crossing off names. Juliana didn't wait for the green light. She knew timing mattered more than permission. At 7 a.m., on the dot, her second article dropped. Headline: "The billion-dollar betrayal. Inside the federal scandal no one saw coming." It didn't just expose individuals. It laid bare a whole system of rot. Anonymous tips, whistleblower accounts, financial records, leaked emails. One quote stood out and lit the match. They buried him. Now he's burying them. Within minutes, phones buzzed across Capitol Hill. Senate aides panicked. Legal teams scrambled. And Dax Reimer's publicist issued a denial that sounded more like an obituary. Meanwhile, Rowan stood outside Reimer Innovations HQ, hidden behind a pair of cheap sunglasses and a black hoodie. Not invisible, but unrecognizable. Inside, chaos. He watched as employees were pulled into rooms. Security huddled at the entrance. Board members stormed out. Someone was crying in the lobby. Then came the biggest blow. Reimer's stock price plunged 38% in 4 hours. Rowan's burner phone lit up with a notification from a trading alert system. Reimer Holdings halted due to suspected internal fraud. SEC probe initiated. He didn't smile. He just turned and walked away. Behind him, an empire burned, not in flames, but in scandal, shame, and headlines. And he was only getting started. Marla stood in her downtown penthouse, staring out at the skyline as sunset dipped the buildings in gold. She hadn't left the house in 3 days. Not since the story broke. Not since the messages came flooding in, threats, questions, betrayal. She thought Dax would protect her. But Dax had gone quiet. She hadn't seen him since the story dropped. His number went straight to voicemail. His office told her he was on leave. She tried to log into her bank accounts. Locked. Every single one. Her hand shook as she poured herself a drink. But before the glass hit her lips, the lights went out. Total blackout. She turned, heartbeat spiking. Her security system flickered, then died. Her phone screen lit up. A video. Live feed. Rowan. Standing in a dark room. Face shadowed. Eyes cold. He said nothing. Just stared. Then the screen went black. Her hands trembled. Her breath hitched. She dropped the phone. The lights came back on. But nothing felt safe. She wasn't being hunted by a man. She was being haunted by a ghost she helped create. Rowan stood in the shadowed corner of a dim cafe outside Flagstaff, Arizona, watching the door. It opened right on time. The man who walked in looked tired. Not just physically, his shoulders slouched like someone who'd been carrying the weight of betrayal for too long. Mid-40s, denim jacket, eyes red. His name was Gavin Wolfe. He sat down across from Rowan. Didn't speak at first. Then, "You're really him. Rowan Briggs." Rowan nodded. "She said you were dead." "She says a lot of things." Gavin reached into his jacket and placed a worn photograph on the table. A younger Marla smiling beside him. "We were married. 10 years ago. Before you. She divorced me out of nowhere. Said I was unstable. Told my friends I hit her. I lost everything. My job. My kid. Had to rebuild from nothing." Rowan's hands clenched under the table. "She never told me about a husband before me. She wouldn't." Gavin leaned closer. "But here's the part that broke me. 6 months after she left me, my daughter disappeared. Foster system. And then I find out Marla signed her over. Said I was unfit." Rowan blinked. "Wait, your daughter?" Gavin nodded slowly. "Your wife. She gave up a child like she was throwing out trash." Rowan felt something shift inside him. A boundary snapped. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a pattern. He wasn't the first. And if he didn't stop her now, he wouldn't be the last. Back in his motel, Rowan plugged Gavin's documents into his secure system. Marriage license. Custody orders. Signed adoption release. All of it traced back to one identity, Marla J. Briggs. But then Rowan checked the official databases. Nothing. No birth certificate. No high school record. No college. Her earliest digital footprint appeared in 2011, right before she met him. Before that, blank. He ran facial recognition software on every photo he had of her. The system spat back a result. 2 matches under different names. Sierra Blake. Jordan Reyes. 2 aliases. 2 different cities. 2 fake histories. Marla wasn't her name. She wasn't even a real person. Rowan sat there, breath caught in his throat. All these years, he hadn't just married a liar. He'd married a ghost. No wonder she was so good at disappearing. She'd been doing it her whole life. He clicked back to her recent travel logs. Multiple flights. Different passports. And then the kicker, her last ticket wasn't booked under Marla. It was under Jordan Reyes. He whispered to himself, "She's about to vanish again. Not this time. The phone rang at 3:47 a.m. An unlisted number. Rowan answered without speaking. A voice came through. Flat. Clean. You've got their attention, Agent Briggs. Who is this? You're sitting on files that compromise active assets. You've lit up 5 federal channels in the last week. We've been monitoring. Rowan didn't blink. Are you going to stop me? A pause. No. We want what you have. Rowan narrowed his eyes. Why? Because the man behind your wife's operation, Avery Keene, didn't leave the agency. He was pushed out. And he took something with him. Rowan felt it click. Ghost protocol. Exactly. Keene stole the trial code. Your wife and her lover built a commercial front to sell it. And the agency let it happen? We couldn't prove it. Until you. Rowan stared at the laptop, his list of names still glowing. What do you want from me? Everything. Full drop. We'll give you immunity. Burn them all. And her. Silence. Then, make it clean. She's a liability to more than just you. Rowan hung up. The ghost inside him stirred. He wasn't just clearing his name anymore. He was cleaning house for the country, and for every victim before him. The wind cut hard through the parking structure at Keene Aerospace's Arizona outpost. Rowan sat on the top level inside a black utility van, watching the building's rooftop through long-range thermal lenses. Below, a meeting was taking place. He didn't need ears to know what it was. Cleanup. Damage control. Erase the threat. He'd intercepted the message hours earlier, a burner pinged between Avery Keene's private server and a kill contractor known only as Red Echo. Clean hits. No bodies. No paper trails. Target. Rowan Briggs. He watched as a black SUV pulled into the lot. 4 men stepped out. Tactical gear. Suppressors visible under jackets. Rowan's chest didn't tighten. He smiled. He leaned down and pressed a button on the console. On the building's east end, a secured locker popped open, one he'd tampered with the night before, using a contractor badge he bought from the dark web. Inside, a live wire hack. The moment Keene's men reached the elevator shaft, total power outage. The lights went dark. The cameras cut off. And Rowan walked calmly through the west stairwell, gun holstered, flash drive in hand, and a press pass badge hanging from his neck. By the time they realized the elevator wasn't coming, he was already on the 9th floor at Keene's office. He didn't knock. He just kicked the door in. And Keene? He was already reaching for a side drawer. Rowan raised the gun. Move, and you'll lose more than your clearance. Keene froze. I warned you, Rowan said. You build a war on lies. And I just cut your legs out from under it. He dropped the flash drive on the desk. Everything you've stolen. Every file you sold. Every death you paid for. I just sent it to Internal Affairs. Your career's over. Keene stared at him. You think this ends with me? Rowan leaned in. No. It ends with her. The cemetery was quiet, damp from a light morning rain. Fog hung low between the tombstones like smoke that hadn't finished its burn. Rowan stood in front of his own headstone. Agent Rowan J. Briggs. A loyal servant to justice. He stared at the name for a long time. Dead, but not gone. He pulled the folded letter from his coat pocket and placed it at the base of the stone. Not for himself. For the people who would come here looking for answers after the dust cleared. He wrote, if you're reading this, you were lied to. I didn't die. I was erased. But I fought back. And if you're standing here now, I hope you know the truth outlives the liars. Always. A voice cut through the air behind him. She's not going to survive this, is she? Rowan didn't turn. He knew the voice, Juliana. She's already buried, he said. She just doesn't know it yet. You sure you're ready for what comes next? I've been ready since the moment she forged my death certificate. She walked beside him, hands in her jacket pockets. You could disappear again. Let the system finish her. I won't disappear this time, he said. She needs to see me. In the flesh. Alive. So she knows she didn't win. He turned to her. When this ends, I want her to choke on the one thing she thought she destroyed. What? My existence. It was a Saturday evening when Rowan entered the house again. His house. But now, it looked nothing like the place he'd built with Marla. Every inch had been sterilized. White walls. Modern art. Minimalist furniture. No warmth. No memory. Only performance. He walked through it slowly, like moving through a dream. Each step echoing with the ghost of what used to be. The living room, once their space, now a showroom for her image. The bedroom, where she used to whisper dreams, now cold, untouched. He stood in the kitchen, pulled out a small burner speaker, and pressed play. Audio recordings filled the air. He's a memory. He was never as sharp as he thought. Once he's gone, we run the world. Her voice, over and over. He lit a match, dropped it into the sink, lined with pages of her financial statements, shredded and soaked in accelerant. Fire caught. Smoke curled. He walked upstairs, calm, controlled. In their old closet, he left one thing behind, her wedding dress. Folded neatly, placed on the floor. On top of it, a photo of their wedding day with a red X across her face. He didn't watch the flames spread. He just walked out the front door, locked it, and disappeared into the night. Behind him, the house burned like a coffin. But he wasn't burying himself anymore. He was burying her legacy. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to stay updated with our latest stories. The newsroom of the Sentinel Broadcast Network was chaos. Reporters shouting, printers jamming, caffeine-fueled editors chasing final drafts. In the middle of it all, Juliana stood calm, headphones on, eyes scanning the countdown on the live feed timer. 010-0900:08. Her voice entered the airwaves with quiet precision. This is Juliana Cates, reporting tonight on a federal story so explosive, it could alter national trust in intelligence agencies forever. Operation Ghost has a face, a voice, and a story that refused to stay buried. Footage rolled. Rowan, face hidden in shadows, began to speak. My name is Rowan Briggs. I was declared dead by the bureau I served. My wife was at the center of that lie. What you're about to hear is the truth they tried to erase. The video detailed everything: drone tech theft, blackmail operations, deep state betrayal, financial records, audio proof, political names. Juliana had structured it like a courtroom opening statement. By the time the segment ended, #GhostAgent was trending worldwide. Senators were being pulled from dinners. PR teams were burning through statements. Defense contracts were being reviewed line by line. Internal Affairs launched a classified inquiry into potential domestic breaches of protocol involving former and current assets. Rowan watched it all from an empty diner booth with a black hoodie over his head. He didn't smile, didn't gloat. This wasn't the win. It was the warning shot, and everyone heard it. The knock came at 4:17 a.m. Hard, measured. Marla bolted upright in bed, heart hammering. She checked her phone, dead. The charger had been yanked from the wall. Her laptop? Gone. The security system? Offline. Another knock. Then shouting. Federal agents. Open the door. She opened it barefoot, trembling. 8 men in black tactical gear stormed in, guns drawn. Where's the hard drive? What hard drive? She screamed. One agent held up a printed frame, Juliana's broadcast screenshot with Marla's face marked person of interest. I'm not involved, she yelled. This is all fabricated. But it didn't matter. They searched the apartment, flipped couches, pulled drawers. Then the lead agent turned. There's nothing here. It's clean. A pause. Then, we hit the wrong target. The team exited as fast as they came. Marla dropped to her knees in the middle of her ripped-open living room, breathing like she'd just come up from drowning. But she wasn't relieved. Because she knew one thing. Rowan made that happen. He wanted her to feel hunted, helpless, like she once made him. And it was working. Back in D.C., inside a sealed office beneath the Department of Justice, Assistant Director Mallory Voss read the documents spread across her desk like a grim mosaic. The pension file was the final piece. Rowan's death had triggered an automatic disbursement. But Rowan's latest evidence, signed affidavits, biometric confirmations, and digital movement logs proved the death was fraudulent. And under federal code, any fraud-induced payout must be reversed. All of Marla's assets, houses, cars, accounts, were officially under review for seizure and criminal penalty. Run the revocation order, Voss said to her aide, and tag the IRS in financial crimes. I want this entire financial web frozen by morning. Yes, ma'am. Rowan received the update via a dead drop server. For $112,700, flagged. Every asset she bought post-death claim, frozen. Marla Briggs, under full federal audit. Rowan stared at the screen. His voice broke the silence. You forged my name. Now you lose yours. Dax Reamer sat alone in his glass-walled boardroom, sleeves rolled up, jaw tight, sweating through a $1,000 shirt. It was the first time in 10 years he'd been told to wait for his own board. The room outside buzzed. His senior VP was on the phone with legal. The CFO was pacing. No one looked at him. No one offered him water. When the board finally entered, they didn't sit. Linda Morales, the chairwoman, slid a folder across the table. Explain this, she said flatly. Dax opened it. Inside, internal fund transfers, forged contract authorizations, and an offshore wire signed with his own name. But he hadn't touched that account in 2 years. He swallowed. This is fake. No, Linda said. It's evidence. From someone inside. Nathan. That weasel had flipped. Dax stood, trying to hold authority. I built this company. You're about to destroy it. Linda snapped. The SEC froze our assets this morning. Our government contracts are under review. You're done, Dax. He looked at the faces around the room, faces that once toasted him with champagne. Now they looked at him like he was contagious. Dax stepped back. I need to speak to my lawyer. You'll get your chance, Linda said. In court. The door opened. 2 federal agents entered. Dax didn't fight it. Because the moment he saw the handcuffs, he knew exactly who was behind this. Rowan Briggs was alive. And he'd come back swinging. The cameras outside the courthouse screamed like sirens. Reporters swarmed the sidewalk. Phones clicked. Microphones pushed. America had found its new obsession, the widow and the ghost. Marla stepped out of the black SUV like she was walking into fire, draped in all black, glasses over her eyes, lips tight, posture perfect. She knew how to play the part. But this time, it wasn't working. Crowds booed. Protesters waved signs that read, Justice for Rowan and Jail the Black Widow. Her lawyers shielded her as they pushed through the front doors. Inside, the press already had their seats. Courtroom cameras rolled quietly. A screen showed her side by side with Dax Reamer, both accused of conspiracy, fraud, and espionage. Juliana sat in the back, scribbling notes. Every reporter in the room looked at her like a legend. She'd started the fire, and now they were all here to document the ashes. Marla glanced around. Her hands trembled at her sides. He could be here, watching. She leaned to her attorney. Is he here? Rowan. We don't know, the man whispered. Marla's mouth went dry. She scanned the gallery, trying to find familiar eyes. But every face was a stranger. And somehow, that made it worse. The courtroom fell silent as the judge entered. Defendants, rise. Marla stood shakily. Dax beside her. Both in designer suits that no longer made them untouchable. The charges were read slowly. Count 1, wire fraud. Count 2, conspiracy against the United States. Count 3, Marla's breath started to hitch. She could hear whispers behind her, journalists, family members of victims, former clients. The room buzzed with her downfall. Then the prosecution dropped the first blow, a voice recording. He should have died years ago. Her voice played loud, clear. The entire room turned toward her. Someone gasped. Someone else said, that's her. She broke. No, that was taken out of context. I didn't. Order, the judge shouted. Control your client. But it was too late. Marla's mask cracked. She turned, voice wild. Rowan, I know you're here. Say something. You want to haunt me? Then show your face. Silence. The judge slammed the gavel. One more outburst, and I'll have you removed. Marla sat down slowly. Mouth open. Eyes darting. For the first time, she looked genuinely afraid. Not because of prison. Because she didn't know what Rowan would do next. Rowan sat in the back row, wearing a gray ball cap pulled low over his face, beard thick, voice silent. No one noticed him. Not yet. He didn't blink when she screamed. Didn't move when she begged. He just watched. Unmoved. Unshaken. The moment she shattered, he felt nothing but focus. This wasn't revenge. It was removal. Erasure. The woman who killed him didn't deserve rage. She deserved to be forgotten. His phone buzzed. A message from Juliana. You ready to be seen? He stared at the screen, then pocketed the phone and stood. Not yet. But soon. Marla's attorney, Greg Sloan, once had a reputation for being ruthless in court, polished, precise, untouchable. But not today. Not when Rowan had leaked a private audio recording to the State Bar's Ethics Committee. Just forged the motion and stalled discovery, Sloan had said weeks ago to Marla on a secure call. Buy us time. By then we'll shift jurisdiction. What he didn't know was that the call had been tapped, planted in the cloud by Rowan's virus months ago, waiting for the right moment. Juliana got the file. She sent it straight to the disciplinary board. By 10 a.m., Sloan was pulled from the defense table mid-hearing. A marshal whispered in his ear. His face turned pale. "Your Honor," he croaked. "I've just been notified of a conflict. I can't represent Ms. Briggs any longer." Marla's head whipped toward him. "What?" The judge sighed, unimpressed. "Your bar license has been suspended pending ethics violations. Court will recess while Ms. Briggs seeks alternate counsel." As Sloan walked out in shame, he didn't even look at Marla. And for the first time, she realized. Everyone who stood with her was either gone or turning on her to save themselves. Rowan never expected this part. He didn't even plan it. It happened because Gavin Wolf's daughter, the child Marla abandoned, walked into the courtroom holding a folder of signed guardianship papers and a handwritten letter. Juliana had tracked her down, but the girl had made her own decision. "I want to speak," she told the prosecutor. And now, there she stood. 18. Composed. Clear-eyed. "My name is Emily Wolf," she said to the court. "Marla Briggs is not my mother. She signed me away when I was 13. She lied to my father. She told the courts he was unstable. She sent me into the system. I spent 2 years in a group home. No calls. No letters." She held up a copy of the custody release. Marla's signature circled. "In this document, she calls me an emotional liability. Not a daughter. A liability." The gallery was silent. Even the judge leaned forward. Marla tried to interject. "That's not," the judge cut her off. "Sit down, Ms. Briggs." Rowan watched from the back, throat tight. He didn't expect to cry. But when Emily looked at the jury and said, "People like her don't change. They just keep moving, hurting, taking," he knew she wasn't just speaking about herself. She was speaking for all of them. The prosecution's final card was subtle, quiet, but lethal. They dimmed the courtroom lights and queued up a security cam recording, old, grainy, but crystal clear in what it showed. Rowan Briggs walking out of the Bureau's records building. Alive. Calm. 3 days after his official time of death. No disguise. No panic. Just one man walking away from a system he knew had turned on him. The room erupted. Even the judge's face changed. Jurors looked at each other. The air shifted. Marla looked like she'd been punched in the throat. That was the moment everything turned. She stood. "This doesn't prove anything. That's doctored." "Sit down, Ms. Briggs," the judge snapped. "Your Honor, if you speak again out of turn, I'll have you removed." Marla sank back into her seat. Her hands shook. Because in that moment, she saw the truth. Rowan had never been her victim. He'd been her executioner. And this was the final nail. Back in Los Angeles, Dax Reamer sat inside a private terminal, a duffel bag of burner phones, foreign passports, and unregistered credit cards beside him. He wasn't going to trial. He was leaving the country. Or so he thought. He handed the documents to the private jet handler. Nodded once. The man scanned the passport. Paused. Looked up. "I'm going to have to hold this, sir." Dax stiffened. "Why?" The man didn't answer. Instead, he stepped aside. Behind him, 2 TSA agents and a U.S. Marshal stepped into view. "Mr. Reamer," the Marshal said. "You've been flagged. Step away from the bag." Dax backed up. "You don't understand." "We do," the Marshal said. "You're under federal investigation. Sit down." As the cuffs clicked, Dax looked around in disbelief. "How the hell did they find me?" The Marshal didn't answer. He just handed Dax a folded sheet of paper. One line written on it. "Try running from a ghost." Dax's face went white. Rowan had traced his burner trail, hacked his travel plans, set the trap 2 days ago. And now, just like Marla, Dax was done. Marla's new lawyer, her third in as many weeks, stood with a visibly trembling hand as he tried to respond to the latest evidence. "There's no definitive proof that my client—" "Stop," the judge said. Her voice was low, flat, tired. "Mr. Kepler, I've allowed you time. I've tolerated delays. But after reviewing the footage, the financial trail, and Ms. Wolf's testimony, this court cannot ignore what's become painfully clear. She turned her eyes to Marla, who sat hunched over, hands twisted into knots. Ms. Briggs, you are facing charges of fraud, conspiracy, identity fabrication, obstruction of justice, and misuse of federal assets. Not to mention the civil cases pending behind this trial. Marla's eyes darted across the room. She looked for a face, anyone who might believe her. But even Dax was gone now. The judge continued. In all my years, I have rarely seen a case so deeply layered in betrayal, greed, and manipulation. You staged a death. You hijacked a man's legacy. You corrupted systems designed to protect national security. And you did it without flinching. Then came the line no one saw coming. The judge nodded to the bailiff. You may bring him in. Doors opened at the back of the courtroom. Gasps echoed. Rowan Briggs walked in. Alive. Upright. Whole. He didn't speak. Didn't smile. Just walked past the gallery and took a seat in the witness box, like he'd never left the world that buried him. Marla stared at him, eyes wide, lips trembling. Her breath caught. And then she collapsed. Right there, in her chair. Her head hit the table, her body buckled. The courtroom broke into chaos. But Rowan didn't move, because justice wasn't loud. It was silent and final. The trial resumed later that afternoon after medical cleared Marla for continuation. She sat pale and small now, shaken, quiet. She didn't speak again for the rest of the day. The prosecution made its closing argument with measured calm. Rowan sat in the gallery, hands clasped, as the prosecutor paced the room. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, she began. You've heard the voices. You've seen the documents. You've followed the trail of lies across years, companies, bank accounts, and burned lives. She pointed gently toward Marla. This woman orchestrated the destruction of a man who dedicated his life to defending the law. She didn't just betray a marriage, she betrayed an oath, a nation, and every system designed to protect truth. Rowan watched as jurors nodded slowly. She sold secrets. She sold trust. And she did it under the name of a man she left for dead. The screen lit up with the final image, Marla's signature on the death claim. The forged fingerprint. Her face in a Vegas suite with Dax, laughing the same night she reported Rowan missing. You've seen everything, the prosecutor finished. Now give him his name back. The courtroom went silent. Then the jury filed out. Rowan stood and walked out the doors, not looking back. For the first time in years, the burden in his chest felt lighter. Not gone, but shifted. They brought Marla into the courtroom the next morning in full restraints, hands cuffed, ankles chained. The jury returned, eyes unreadable. The foreman stood. In the matter of the United States versus Marla Briggs, we the jury find the defendant guilty on all counts. The words slammed into the room like thunder. Marla didn't blink. At first. Then she began to laugh. Softly. Deliriously. No. No. You don't get to win, Rowan. She stood suddenly, unsteady. You're not real. You died. I watched you. The judge slammed the gavel. Bailiff. You died. Marla screamed. You died, Rowan. He didn't answer. He just stood, still wearing the gray cap and jacket, and watched her scream. Her voice broke as they dragged her away. Rowan, say something. Say something. But he didn't. Not yet. Outside the courtroom, press flooded the steps. Juliana waited at the base. How does it feel? She asked him softly. Rowan looked up at the sky. Clear. Sharp. Like silence. Then he walked right through the cameras and microphones. No words. No announcement. Just presence. And that was enough. The headlines came fast. Black Widow sentenced. FBI ghost agent returns to destroy espionage ring. The man they couldn't kill walks free. But Rowan didn't care. He didn't give interviews. Didn't write a book. Didn't post a single photo. He disappeared again, but this time, not out of fear. Out of peace. Some said he moved to Montana. Others claimed he changed identities again and started helping the Bureau clean up internal corruption. A few thought he died for real this time, vanished back into the earth. But only one person knew the truth. Juliana. She received one email 6 months after the verdict. No sender name. No trace. Just a photo. A cabin in the woods. A dog on the porch. A man standing barefoot in the dirt, holding coffee. In one line of text, some ghosts don't haunt. They rebuild. Juliana smiled. She didn't reply. Some stories aren't meant to be continued. Some are just meant to be felt, like the crack of truth after years of silence. Rain fell on the courthouse steps like a slow-ticking clock. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with quiet anticipation. No cameras this time. No audience. Just the federal judge, the legal teams, and Marla Briggs, chained at the wrists, flanked by 2 U.S. Marshals. She didn't wear makeup now. No tailored blazer. No mask. Just the gray of a federal jumpsuit and the shadow of the woman she used to be. The judge reviewed the sentencing terms. Given the scale of the fraud, the theft of classified material, and the orchestration of a false death with federal consequences, this court has reviewed the maximum recommendation under federal guidelines. A pause. Marla's jaw clenched. Her fingers twitched. Marla Jean Briggs, you are hereby sentenced to 32 years in federal prison without parole. You will be remanded immediately. The courtroom remained silent. No gasp. No cry. Not even from her. Just a tight exhale from her lips, as if she knew it was coming all along. As they led her away, she turned just once. Rowan wasn't there. She hoped he would be. To scream at her. To spit. To gloat. But the worst punishment? He didn't show. She left in silence. And for the first time in her life, no one followed. Rowan didn't have a watch anymore. No clocks on the walls. No calendar. Just the sun rising, the trees swaying, and the old hound dog curled by the fireplace. His cabin sat 3 hours from the nearest gas station, buried in tall pines, miles from cell towers. There was no address. No mailbox. Only a dirt road worn smooth by solitude. He spent his mornings chopping wood and boiling coffee. No news. No feeds. Just peace. The case was over. The world had moved on. And Rowan? He didn't crave headlines or redemption. He didn't need the world to know he was alive. He just needed to feel it. Some days, he hiked trails with no names. Other days, he wrote letters he never mailed, to his younger self, to his mother, to the bureau. But one letter he did keep folded in his back pocket. The one from Juliana, weeks after the trial. A single line handwritten at the bottom. Some stories are meant to be survived, not told. He read that line sometimes by lantern light when the ghost returned. Not to haunt, just to sit beside him. Quiet company in the place he built from nothing. Juliana Kate stood on a Manhattan rooftop, phone pressed to her ear, cold wind whipping through her hair. The line rang once. Twice. Then, you reached it. His voice. Still using that line, she smiled. You still calling this late? I'm writing something. No names, he said quickly. Of course not, she replied. It's not a story. It's something for me. A pause hung between them like shared breath. How are you? She asked. Rowan's voice was low. Calm. Breathing. Sleeping. That's enough. Juliana leaned against the railing. They're making a documentary. About the trial. They asked me to be in it. Will you? No, Rowan chuckled. Good. Another silence. You still afraid they'll come looking? She asked. No, not anymore. Juliana's voice dropped. You won. You know that, right? No, Rowan said. I just lived. She smiled. Take care, ghost. Always. And just like that, he hung up. Juliana didn't call back. Some voices are meant to be heard once. Then remembered. It was early spring in Montana. The trees had started to blush green again, and Rowan's cabin smelled like wood smoke and pine. He stood in the doorway with a letter in his hands, sealed, yellowed from time, edges curled. The name on it, Marla. He'd written it 6 months ago. Not to forgive her. Not to relive anything. But to let go. Inside the envelope were just a few lines. You didn't break me. You freed me from the man I thought I had to be. And somehow, after all of it, I still hope you find peace. But not in my name. He didn't mail it. Never planned to. Instead, he dropped it into the fire. The flames curled around the edges slowly, until the paper collapsed into itself. He watched it burn without blinking. That part of his life, gone. Ash, like she tried to make of him. But he was still here. Breathing. Stronger. Not haunted. He looked out over the hills where morning fog crawled like waves across the land. Peace wasn't a place. It was a choice. And he'd finally made it. 1 year later, Juliana stood in front of a packed auditorium at a journalism conference in D.C. Her keynote was titled, Truth That Refused to Die. The audience leaned in as she spoke. This story wasn't about a man who cheated death. It was about a man who rebuilt something after everyone else had torn it down. She paused, swallowing the lump in her throat. He never asked for fame. He never wanted revenge paraded like a trophy. What he wanted was his life back. And maybe that's the biggest win of all. A slide behind her showed the last known image of Rowan, standing barefoot at the edge of a lake, his dog beside him, face turned from the camera, hands in his pockets. A symbol of silence. Survival. Peace. Juliana looked at the crowd. And if you're wondering, yes, he's out there. Still watching. Not to haunt, just to make sure the wrong people never write the last chapter again. Then she smiled. Before we close tonight, let me ask you something. Her voice softened, but the room leaned in. If someone tried to erase you, your name, your voice, your truth, would you stay gone? Or would you come back swinging? A beat of silence. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I read everyone. Then, with a warm, knowing look, and hey, if this story hit you deep, like it did me, drop a like, subscribe, and stick around. Because next time, we're diving into another thriller, another twist, another revenge story you won't forget. Until then, take care of yourself. And remember, sometimes the ghosts are the ones who got out alive. Fade out. The end.